All right, let's talk about fake football.
Yes.
Shall we have to talk about the
Fake
problem. And guys, I know that it's a preseason game, and I know he's got a lot going on in his life, but I want your immediate reaction to what you saw from Watson. Were you concerned? Do you dismiss all of it? Bull, you can start.
I mean, he played crappy, and they played crappy when he was out there. But it's 5 throws. I can't get carried away. Somebody said, "Oh, if it was Baker, you would have ripped him." Listen, I've ripped Baker for a million things, but I wouldn't rip him for throwing 5 passes and 4 incomplete in the preseason.
Right.
My theory on the preseason has always been, and I can't understand why people make more of it than it is, the preseason is part of the process of getting ready. It's important to the team. There's things they learn about routine and stuff like that. It's important to young players battling for roster spots. But for a guy who's going to be the starting quarterback eventually for this team, I am not getting worked up about 5 passes.
Right.
Would I have loved to see him throw a 40-yard touchdown? Sure, we could have all gotten excited about that. But even if that happened, that doesn't really mean anything either. Yeah. That's my reaction to it.
I think I said when I was in on Thursday, he's going to go 2 of 6 for 16 yards. I wasn't far off.
No.
Remember that? I was pretty close.
You were really close.
That was pretty spot on.
If Schwartz could have caught one of them,
that's true.
He would have been 2 of 5 for 16 yards.
Right.
So I'm not surprised. Listen, he's missed a ton of time.
Yeah.
Right? We knew it's a 19-month layoff. This is probably the only time you're going to see him for another 12 months. I think that's why they try to crowbar him out there and get him these amount of snaps before a decision comes down. You can't read anything into it. It's the first preseason game. It is what it is. They look terrible. He looked rusty. Okay, so you punt and you move on. I wouldn't make too big of a deal about it.
Yeah, listen, they did what they needed to do to get him together on his mental aspect. To me, this was seeing for the first time for a player that has been traditionally liked around the league, a player that was beloved in Houston. Now, a couple of years, almost 2 years later, guess what? Get used to those boos.
Oh, yeah.
Get used to people being in your ear. Get used to people bearing down on you. And you got to get used to, for a certain period of time, being a bad guy. And the whole team needed to understand that and to hear it.
Not for a period of time. I think
for a long time.
Yeah,
he's going to hear those. When he goes to opposing stadiums, he's going to see signs and he's going to hear the chants.
For the rest of his career.
career.
Now,
if Berger got it,
if he can win some championships, it'll die down a little bit. But what they wanted to do, and I thought they did a good job of it, they wanted to shock their body. They wanted to shock them into understanding this is your new reality. It's no more lovable losers. The Browns are going to be public enemy number 1 in every single stadium.
Yeah, that's definitely 1,000% correct. Here's my takeaway. I thought it was interesting that on his very first pass was a rollout to the left that looked Baker-esque. And I thought, okay, that's not by accident. They're going to show right away that our guy can do that too. Not surprised that he sailed at 10 yards over Schwartz's head. Anybody that's played pro sports, professional, competitive sports at any level, he had the adrenaline of 20 months coursing through his veins. It was easy to predict that his first pass was going to be overthrown. No matter how much you try to think about that, he's made 1 million passes in practice. I get it. I think physically, he looked rattled to me. He looked nervous. I can understand that. Everything he's been through, and now he's finally getting back to what he loves to do most. I expected him to look nervous. He got his feet tangled up coming under center on one of the plays. That's not who we're getting. That's not who this guy is.
Right.
I watched it. I consumed it. I immediately forgot about all of it. It means nothing to me, just as Dobbs' performance meant very little to me, too.
I don't care what he did. I don't care what Rosen did. I don't want to see them taking a snap.
It was good that he was serviceable.
Yeah,
Dobbs
fine.
is a serviceable guy.
Yeah.
But everybody that was getting all excited about his numbers and, hey, what do we have? What we have here is what we thought we had here. He was doing it against guys that will be selling insurance in a couple of weeks. So I'm not going to get too excited about that.
Against third stringers on the team that was the worst team in football last year.
And a lot of those guys aren't going to be around in a couple of weeks. So I'm happy for him. I think we talked about this on Friday's show. You would much rather your guy do well in preseason games.
Yeah.
But you just can't take too much out of any of it.
We can get more into this later, but you made a point last week when I was on about I wouldn't play him, the injury risk. What are you trying to – it wasn't that he got hurt. It was disastrous, though.
Yeah.
Losing Nick Harris.
Well, let's talk about Nick Harris.
That was, to me, that's disastrous that you lose your starting center. The only reason he's out there is because of Deshaun. That's it.
Yeah.
They're playing the first-string starters. They don't do that in the first preseason game.
Well, we saw that last year with Stefanski didn't use any.
That's exactly. The only reason he's out there is because of Deshaun, because you're trying to protect Deshaun. And then to lose your center, on the second snap,
Yeah.
turned the whole thing into a disaster.
Yeah.
Because the
You
whole
had a pit in your gut the whole rest of the night.
yeah, and you knew, you just
You
knew.
know, the
he's
player
done.
reaction always tells you. When they're going to their head,
Yeah.
they know what it is.
Right.
They've been injured before. They've had tweaks. You know when you tear your ACL. Am I right, G. Bush?
Yes, you do.
You know the second it happens
Yep.
because you almost go into shock.
Well, when I saw
the
him,
pain is so bad, you almost go into shock.
he had a bull rush. He was trying to guy bull rush him. He's trying to reset his hunker down, put his head out of the block. And as soon as he went to that back leg, that post leg, it was just like, oh, it gave out. I was like, oh, yeah, he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say this, though. I'm not going to blame Stefanski. I'm not going to blame the whole idea that you're playing Deshaun in the first place. Injuries happen.
That's right. He
It
needed
could
to
have
play.
happened in practice. You oftentimes, with the ACL, usually there is a traumatic play. There's one play. But I remember my surgeon telling me when I retore it, and I said, was this destined to happen? He said, oftentimes, believe it or not, your genetic makeup leaves you sometimes predisposed to that injury.
Mm-hmm.
Is it one of those things where it's 99% there and one more play is going to put it over? Yeah, I've seen that. Oftentimes it's not. In football, it's that one twerk,
Twist.
that your body weight gets caught in the wrong place, your foot gets stuck in the dirt,
Yeah.
and you twist. But it could have happened the first game of the regular season. It could have happened on yesterday's practice session. These things happen.
Right.
And you just can't start pointing fingers. This wouldn't have happened if.
I agree.
We don't
I
know.
think it's ridiculous to blame Stefanski. Watson needed some reps. The starting offensive line needed to be out there, and working with the center. So I don't have any problem with that.
Have they called J.C. Tretter yet?
Well, these guys are saying, I know G said he was at camp the other day and he heard that, some rumblings.
I don't
understand. I mean, Joe Bitonio, do we have the clip or the graphic here of what Joe Bitonio said yesterday? I know we were going to get to it later, but since we went down this road anyway, Bitonio basically insinuated that nobody's signing Tretter because he's the president of the NFL Players Association.
I was surprised you went there. I was really
But
surprised.
isn't it
that-
obvious?
I'm really surprised he went there.
Isn't that obvious,
Yeah,
though?
but they don't ever acknowledge the obvious.
No.
All right, fair. That's
It's
true.
like an owner saying we might be colluding.
Yeah, and it's true because Bitonio's never a guy that says anything controversial.
No.
But it's obvious. The guy was still one of the best centers in the league last year. At worst, he's a top 10 center. And it's ridiculous. This Ethan Pocic, or however the hell you say his name,
Right.
I know he started games for Seattle, but he's not very good.
He's kind of a bust. He was a second-round pick of the
yeah,
Seahawks.
when a team gives up on a high draft pick like that,
Second-round pick.
something
Yeah.
is wrong with them.
J.C. Tretter was much better than this guy. I don't understand.
I think what J.C. Tretter is, J.C. wasn't able to practice as much as he would. Basically, he was on the list where it's like, hey, give us what you can as long as you can make it by walkthroughs, and you'll be good. You could be on the field. But sometimes other players are like, look, man, he's not here. We got to go through these grueling practices. We got to still do those
And
things.
that's a
he's
unit that has to
playing.
work together.
And the unit has to work
I
together.
don't buy that there was an offensive lineman that was unhappy that Tretter was missing some practice. And I would take Tretter with no practice over this guy
I
with
would
everyday
too.
practice.
Don't underestimate the fact that J.C. Tretter basically brought down the entire OTA program of the Cleveland Browns last year.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate
There's
that.
something to be said for that for sure.
That absolutely, as the role of union president, I had other linemen saying, whatever JC tells us, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And he basically brought down the entire OTA program. And that, I'm sure, is lingering with the franchise.
I think you're right.
That's being
And
short-sighted
and maybe
and
other
stupid,
teams
though.
as
The
well.
guy helps you win.
Look, at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
about wins. If
Yeah.
you're going to bring in a guy with baggage and
Yeah.
court cases hanging over his head,
Yeah.
if you've got a guy that is very strong at a position that you are now extremely weak,
Yeah.
if the fan base is going to start looking at them side-eyed
Yeah.
if they don't bring him in.
I do know that there was the game against the Raiders. Go back and watch the game against the Raiders last year where Tretter got absolutely destroyed on back-to-back plays on run calls of Chubb where they just needed a first down and they could run the clock out and win the game.
Yeah.
And that left a sour taste in
That's
some people's
interesting.
mouth.
I mean, everybody's going to have a bad game.
I
here
agree.
and there. He was still,
And by the way, I still think they should go get Jay. I'm in
yeah.
agreement with you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just trying to give you reasons as to why
I
he's
hope whatever
probably
the
not
differences
here.
are. Look, we got issues. We got to put them aside.
Yeah.
You got to put the best product on the field because we've talked about this ad nauseum. The window is getting shorter. It shrinks every day. McNuggets, what do you got?
Who better to talk about offensive linemen than our next guest, John Greco, who we're going to get to in 1 second. But before we get to John Greco, we're going to tell you what the internet has to say about Deshaun Watson's first performance in a Brown uniform. And when we do that, it's brought to you by PCC Airfoils. Looking for career advancement with great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Mentor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up. Plus, get full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. Apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more.
My PC Airfoils. Oh, I left out a C.
Yeah,
trying to do my Sharona.
Hey, you started
Look like
off
you've had
slow,
19
man.
months off.
Hey, we got John Greco.
I'm rusty.
We're going to run through these
I'm
real
rusty.
quick. We're going to run through these real
All right,
quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's take tag board.
Yeah.
Anthony, this
Hey,
is what
John
we
Greco.
asked.
John
Greco
Greco's
will
on the
be
tag
in
board.
1 sec, but first we're going to do the tag boards here. We just asked the internet, using only a GIF, what was your reaction to 1 quarter of Deshaun Watson? We got some good answers. Let's go to the first one, Anthony. I think that's a shot at Anthony Schwartz, a little hot potato. Let's go to the next one. I don't know what this meant, but it was funny. I liked it. I'm not quite sure exactly what it represents.
Is that
but
a piece of cheese?
throw
Yeah.
cheese on a
Piece of
cat and
cheese
see
over
what
the cat's
happens.
eyes.
Okay.
Can't go wrong with that. And let's go to the last one, Anthony. A little positivity.
Yeah.
Not the best, but it's going to be all right. So now,
I'll
without
co-sign
further
that
ado,
one. It'll
Yeah.
be all right. It'll be
let's
all
welcome John Greco
John
via the
Greco.
Gridiron.
There he is.
Looking for
Hey,
a
guys.
local roofer you can trust. Family owned since 2003. The Gridiron guys have grown to become Northeast Ohio's top-rated roofers. They exemplify quality work practices and are a valued resource for homeowners. Call 330-573-7967 today for a free estimate or roof inspection. Without further ado,
Gridiron, guys.
We missed that.
Yeah,
we
we
really
did.
did. Where did you shoot the one that we were playing when you were gone?
That was at the Shed Aquarium in Chicago.
Were people looking at you like, what the
Like
hell
we
is
were
this guy
nuts.
doing?
We were out of our mind. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what. John Greco's going to tell us whether J.C. Tretter was garbage last year or decent.
Yeah, because he
Jason
knows.
Tretter was awesome. John knows that, right? John, they should bring Tretter back, shouldn't they?
Absolutely. And, right before I hopped on, I heard you say something about Joel Bitonio's comments. I didn't hear those. I didn't hear him make those comments. And like you, I am shocked that he actually said that, but he is speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And I agree that, the player, especially when he's still active and ahead of the players union, I think that does carry some serious baggage, and teams are trying to avoid that. So I think that is one of the reasons why J.C. Tretter is not on a roster right now.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No,
I mean,
but-
he's still a frontline player.
John, isn't this, I mean, you talk about collusion. We've had it
Yeah.
in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
This is, to me, if I'm a player, and to your point, Bitonio says it, he says nothing controversial.
Nothing. Yeah.
If you were to poll players, probably 99% of them would say, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. So it's obvious. How does something like this happen in good faith with the NFL? You would think the NFLPA would be furious over this, and that all the players would be too.
Yeah, I agree. And, unfortunately, when the teams are in training camp and the players are in training camp, these are conversations that are happening behind the scenes. But those guys have a full plate, and right now it's just about keeping the blinders on and moving forward. But yeah, absolutely. I would think with everything that's going on, my God, what a bad break for Nick Harris. I know the guy was working his tail off, and for him to, for the team to lose him, on that play as early as it happened, and when you have a guy that would be able to seamlessly enter the locker room. The players love him. He knows the playbook. He's a veteran. He's a talented player. He still has a lot left in the tank. I just don't see why and how it doesn't happen.
Is there any chance, at this point I wouldn't think so, but is there any chance JC wouldn't want to come back because the Browns cut him?
I would think that JC's a guy that is smart. He knows that, unless it was an ego thing that would get in the way or just out of spite. But how can you leave that money on the table when you know that your services are needed? And if anything, I would think that JC would want to go in there and do the terrific job that we all know that he's done and he would be able to do, just to kind of stick it to everybody and say, hey, listen, you made a mistake by letting me walk. Yeah. And I get it. I know Nick Harris was a drafted player and you want to see your young guys in there. Sure. But J.C. Tretter, like I said, he still has a lot in the tank. And I think that he would be able to come in and just like it never happened. Just let's move forward. It was a business decision. Let's all acknowledge that and move forward.
John, when you talk about Bill Callahan, right, what he's able to do up front, Are the Browns more concerned with just getting somebody in here and filling this position, or do they think Bill Callahan can coach up one of the guys that's behind him to get to a level where he's respectable or not that much below J.C. Tretter and his talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, coaches like the Phil Jackson of offensive line minds. I mean, he's the Zen master of offensive lines. I remember, I never had a chance to play for him, but I remember watching his drills and other coaches, the level of respect that they have for Coach Callahan and his drills and mindset and methodology. But, getting back to your question, I think that is the goal. That is, probably the plan right now, and they're discussing that behind the scenes. With the guys that we have on this roster, are we going to be able to kind of slap the patch? What's the guy on the commercial that slaps the patch? Flex Seal on the league and see if we can maneuver this. I think that's a conversation that's happening. But that center position is important, and it's one that kind of you don't really realize how big of an issue is until you have a problem there. Because in pass protection, the center's, he's not one-on-one a lot. He's always in combination with one of the guards, and you just need a competent person in there that can make the calls, get everybody lined up, because the Browns have talent across the board surrounding that center position. So you can't take too many steps back, or it's going to be a glaring deficiency. You're going to see teams starting to line up their number one pass rushers and try to scheme things around where you can get everybody working out and you can isolate that center. So if a team smells blood in the water and they see a weakness at that position, they're going to try to exploit it. So you have to take it serious and consider all your options.
John, it's the whole butterfly effect. We were talking about this before you came on, and the fact that the only reason Nick Harris is out there is because they're trying to get Deshaun some reps and snaps before he's eliminated and suspended. So now you have to play your first string offensive line, and now this happens. So it's all, and I'm not necessarily blaming Kevin Stefanski. I'm just saying this is the butterfly effect of the Deshaun situation. Now you've lost your starting center. And the Eagles are coming into town. That's just a long-winded way for me to get to this. The Eagles are coming into town this week, and it's a controlled environment is what teams keep calling it. Why is this so beneficial, and why is this better than a preseason game when you have joint practices, you have two teams on the field, they're competitive and they're going at it? What makes this more of a controlled environment than a random preseason game? Does that make sense? Do you understand where I'm going with it?
I do, absolutely, and I hopefully I answer it the way that you're looking for. In my experiences with these joint practices, when they first started and when I was first involved with them, it was like a war zone. There was no control. It was guys were getting hurt. There were fights. It just turned into something that was, counterproductive. It was you were losing ground. Guys were getting injured, fights, like I said. So then that's kind of that buzzword, controlled environment, and you wanted to get that quality work in, which I think is great, because in every experience that I've had, really after the first couple of years, it was controlled. You were starting to be smart about it. It was like, hey, look, we're not out here to try to win the Super Bowl today. Let's get quality work against someone that isn't wearing our same helmet. And I think it's great. You can break down into the individual drills and get good work done, and everybody's happy. No one's trying to finish each other. You're going to have a few rotten apples in there that are trying to do too much, but for the most part, it was just guys trying to look out for one another, get the quality work in, and move forward without taking a setback and getting anyone injured. But I like them. I think the players are starting to like them a little bit more, because you get to see that competition with someone that isn't wearing your same helmet, your same jersey, and it gets a little bit of bragging rights, but great competition, because the preseason game is kind of buttoned up. You're trying to evaluate your roster, but in those joint practices, you do get a sense and get a chance to see good on good. You're going to see the starting guard go against their starting defensive tackle, your starting receiver get reps against their starting corner. So it's you're not going to be taking these huge hits. The quarterback's not going to be getting hit, but it gives you a chance to get kind of that one-on-one matchup at full speed, or as close as you can, to replicate that in the week without having to worry about all the other variables with a preseason game.
John, I watched the first episode. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the first episode of Hard Knocks with the Lions? Did you happen to watch it?
I did, yes.
Okay, so obviously Dan Campbell is a player's coach. Like he seems like he's still a player, and I'm curious because I remember Dustin Fox, my former radio partner, telling me, like, when he played with Mike Tice in Minnesota, Mike Tice was the same kind of coach, and he felt like maybe he was too close with the players and maybe there was a level of like, oh, he's my buddy, not a coach. Is it an individual thing? Like, did you prefer to have a coach who was more like a traditional coach, or did you like the players coach, or is it really an individual guy thing?
I think it's on an individual case basis. I like the players coaches in particular. If you had a coach that actually played, they just, you have a more intimate knowledge of being in those shoes. So I think, I don't want to say they took care of you more, like I don't want to make it sound like it was easier on the players, but I just think that there was more things taken into consideration that were more player friendly. You never wanted to get the sense that, hey, this is my buddy, because it is your coach, and it is someone that's in a leadership role, and you have to have.
Oh no,
He's thinking. He's just paused to think for a second. I'm sure he'll be right back.
Did we get him?
When we get him back, the one thing that I would love to hear him talk about is how much he would love to block for this group of running backs. Because we know what Chubb and Hunt can do.
Yeah.
We also know what Johnson can do.
Yeah.
We learned that Jerome Ford, and guys, I know I say I don't put too much into the preseason because it's who you're playing against. I was just watching him as a player, his footwork, his speed,
his vision,
his ability to sacrifice his body to make the touchdown catch, his vision, his instincts.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're going to give a 5-star for a preseason game, Ford gets it.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, he was impressive.
Yeah, but
I don't want to get carried away, but
I think in preseason running backs translate.
Well, John's back.
We got John back.
Momentary lapse in internet connection.
Yeah, a little
but
freeze
John's
action.
back.
John, I don't know if you heard it, but I would love to hear you talk about how much you would enjoy blocking for this group of running backs, because we know what Chubb and Hunt can do, but my biggest takeaway from Friday night was your dynamic in that room can change dramatically, and it can change quicker than I had originally thought, because I know Ford is looked at as a guy, Jerome Ford is looked at as a guy who will replace Hunt, or at least be a nice addition to that running back room. What did you take of his performance, and how much would you love blocking for this group of backs?
Man, that's a great question. That's one that I get often, and I'm like, man, I wish that I was in that room blocking for these guys. And look, it's a good problem if you're a Browns fan, and if you're in that locker room, you don't want to hear anybody complain about having too much talent in one room, and that's what makes things life miserable for these, the scouts and the front office, and when they have to make these roster cuts and these moves, what are they going to do? But that just shows you the level of coaching, the level of work ethic, the level of skill that's in that room. And look, it's an orchestra out there, guys. And the way they work with the offensive line, with the tight ends and blocking, the scheme, and the way they execute. And when you see what impresses me the most about, especially these young running backs, their ability to turn maybe a 2 to 3 yard gain into 4, 5, and 6, and just stretch those extra yards out. I think that's what makes Kareem Hunt so dangerous. I think that's obviously Nick Chubb is a gifted athlete, but those guys never go down on the first hit. They're always falling forward. And that's what, we always talk about this division, how it's, you got to earn your stripes. It's black and blue. It's a physical game. That's how these guys are so successful late in the game and closing out games, because they're falling forward. They're leaning on you. They're wearing you out. And then it shows up in the fourth quarter for those big time runs. But the young running backs, I was extremely impressed that when they get the ball in their hands, they have great vision. They most importantly, they follow the scheme. They're hitting the right holes. They're reading the defense, and they're following their blockers. And it's something to get excited about if you're a Browns fan.
Yeah, I love Ford. Go ahead, McNuggets.
Hey, John, appreciate you joining us. Also, it's our second sports coat in UCSS history. So, John, thank you for getting dressed up
Very
for us
dressed
today.
up.
Wearing it well, too.
Yeah, it looks good.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I'm at work right now. I'm at the office, so this is kind of my day-to-day thing. I appreciate that. So if you have me again, you'll be seeing me at it again.
Well, I do have a real question, though, John. We talk about these joint practices. And, Steve, let's take tag board real quick. The Eagles are coming to town this week. I'm not sure if you saw this clip, but this was Jordan Davis, their rookie, pushing an offensive lineman back, no joke, 17 yards in practice last week. If you had to block a guy like this, who's 6'6", 340 pounds, and a freak, what do you do? How do you even attempt to slow this guy down? He is coming to Cleveland this week.
Well, I'll tell you what, right off the bat, if I was doing this drill in front of my fans, I would hope that the coach would have a quick whistle and get me out of it.
God.
He is obviously a big man. And, we can argue this drill until we're blue in the face because you'll have both sides of the aisle explaining why it's beneficial and who's at the advantage and who doesn't. But I thought the center did a pretty good job. And, I mean, he's holding on to his rear end, obviously, for the tail end of that clip. But Jordan Davis is a big man. And when he figures out his leverage and he figures out this game and how to get his hands right, he's going to be a serious issue for opposing offensive linemen.
Greco, what you got to do, you got to give him that high helmet and then go ahead and cut him up. You get one more thousand. There you go. Now, when that hat disappears, that's how you got to get to Mr. Davis. But other than that, you're in trouble.
Exactly. You're going to see a lot of guys on skates when he's bull rushing. But I've seen some of the best guys when they get that bull rush. Now Jordan's upright. Some of the times you see them duck their head, and we called it kind of a quick ole where the center would grab and just kind of tug the guy, and you would see his helmet would go right into the dirt and embarrass him. But it's kind of tough to do that when you have a man that big standing straight up and he's just outpowering you.
John, I'm curious your take on, obviously there's been so much talked about the off-the-field stuff with Deshaun Watson. But the reality is once you get on the field, my assumption is someone who never played in the NFL, is that I don't even want to say players don't care. It's just maybe that it doesn't matter when you're playing. It doesn't mean you have to love Deshaun Watson, but if he's your teammate, you're going to war with him, that's it. Is that, do you think there's guys, if you had to guess, do you think there's guys in that locker room who are like, I wish he wasn't on this team? Or do you think everybody's like, this guy's a great quarterback, I can't wait till he plays because we're going to kick some ass?
I don't think there's anyone that says they.
Well, hey, while we're waiting for John.
Locked him up again.
Right,
questions.
Right.
It
It was a good question, too.
And this is not VMix. This is just John's.
Yeah,
internet we
it
have.
happens.
But while we're waiting for John to get back, and no big deal, he'll be back in one sec. I want to tell you guys about Built Bar real quick. Have you guys had Built Bars?
No.
Are they the power bars?
Yeah, little power bars.
Yeah, I think I've had one.
If you haven't, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. They got a couple new flavors: cookie dough chunk puffs, light chewy texture, real cookie dough, and of course they're covered in 100% chocolate.
Is this a new sponsor?
It's a Locked On sponsored combo thing with us that we
Nice.
have to read a couple times a week. So
All right.
yeah, we're going to get some Built Bars in here. I haven't tried them yet, but we are going to get some Built Bars in here. We'll make sure we share them all with you.
I've had one, and if it's the same bar that I'm thinking of, it was actually pretty good.
If they're going to sponsor, I like them.
Yeah, so if you get a chance, go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKDOWN15 to get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo
We'll wear their
code
shirts.
LOCKDOWN15.
Yeah.
Bull, to your question.
Yeah.
I really wonder.
And John's back, by the way, so we can
Oh,
bring
Yeah.
good. So we can answer the question.
So I want you to answer Bull's question, but I want to add a little bit of a twist to it. How many of the guys in the locker room have to hear from their wives about, I can't believe they have this guy because they were friends with Emily Mayfield and now the Mayfields are gone? That's a real part of this. Am I crazy?
No, you're absolutely right about that. As long as as long as you're using team sponsored and approved massage therapists, I think you're okay. You're in clear with the wives. But yeah, that is a topic of discussion. The network, the ladies network, it is strong because while the players are at work, the ladies are either home with managing the day-to-day things at the house or raising the family, or they have their own careers. So that is something that you don't want to be yelled at all day during at meetings and practice for missing your block, and then you come home and you have to face your other coach.
Go ahead and answer Bulls.
No, but you don't think the players they want to win, so they're happy. They're probably happy to have him here. No.
Absolutely, and sorry about the connection
Yeah, it
here.
happens.
But absolutely, I don't think there's anybody in the locker room that says, "God, my gosh, I wish he wasn't here." I think that you're seeing more of like, let's just come to a resolution and get some clarity and some closure. Because Deshaun Watson is a talented player. Everybody knows that. Did he look a little bit rusty out there? Did the offense kind of sputter to start? Absolutely, but it's a preseason game and you have some time to iron that out. But I think everybody is just like, hey, we just want some answers. We want to know what's ahead of us. Is he going to be in there in week 1, week 7, week 10, next year? Let's just get some answers. That way we can prepare and move forward. So, to answer your question, I don't think there's anybody in the locker room that says, we don't want this guy on our team. They may agree or disagree with some of his actions or alleged actions, but everybody wants that guy on his team because they know that he can help them win.
That's right.
You know, John, let's drill down on that a little bit. When you talk about the locker room, and there's a perception of that when you're in the locker room and somebody is asking you questions about another person, and they always talked about the distraction feature, right? You know, is he going to be a distraction to the team? How much is that really a thing? Like sometimes if you play offensive line and there's defensive line, right? Sometimes you don't even see those guys. You see them like once or twice during the practice and don't really see them. How much is that really a distraction when you have to answer questions about another person, or is it just a cliche? Or how much does that affect you?
He's really thinking about this
he
one. He is deep in thought there.
He's deep in thought on the question and on Built Bars, our new best friends.
Yeah, exactly.
But John's back.
John's back. So it's a quick freeze. There he is. Did you hear the question, John?
Yeah, I did. You know, for me, it was only a distraction if you let it be a distraction. And everything to me outside of that building was just outside noise. And it didn't matter what was being asked. I knew how to field those questions. I knew how to just kind of deflect and say, hey, that's something that's a private matter between this player and this, whatever was going on. And that's on them. It's my job to block and prevent Jordan Davis from bull rushing me 20 yards back. And these are things that were private matters, and they'll sort themselves out. I'm here to play and to be, the best I can be for this team. And I think that's what the common theme is. And look, the PR people have been coaching these guys up behind the scenes, trust me, since Deshaun was signed. So this is a matter that, it's annoying if they answer the questions about it, if you're in the locker room and, you just got off a field and you're sweaty. But these guys know the deal. They know it's a part of the game, and they just have to move forward.
John, you mentioned the PR people and guys getting coached up on answers and what to say when reporters go to certain areas. One of the things that we're scheduled to talk about here in the next couple of minutes, so I might as well bring it up with you before we let you go. I want to get your reaction to Deshaun's apology in the interview with Aditi on the pregame show ahead of Friday's game. What did you make of it? Were you surprised by it? Grade the comments on a 1 to 10.
Respectfully, I'm not going to grade their apology. I was surprised, to answer your one question, I was surprised that he did that, especially in that time. But I just think, everybody, this is just my opinion, I just think that everybody's trying to move on. And Deshaun chose to make that apology, whether that was, his attorneys or his staff, his people trying to encourage him to do that, or if he just wanted to genuinely say that and apologize and just to try to move forward a little bit. And whether he chose the right words or did it the right way, that's on him. And it's not for me to analyze it, but I think he's trying to just put an apology out there, show that everybody's trying to, put together as much good faith as they can, because they just want, I'll go back to it, they just want closure. They just want answers. They want to know, when is this guy going to be able to suit up for real and go out there on Sundays? Yeah. So I think that was just a step toward, trying to get to a conclusion about this whole thing.
All right. Former Browns offensive lineman
John.
John Greco joining us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports. So, John, thank you very much. Keep wearing the blazer, bro. It works. It looks great.
It's a good look.
It looks great. It's your thing whenever you're on the show. John, thanks, man. We appreciate you.
Guys, thank you. Send me some of those sponsored T-shirts, and I'll wear them under the jacket.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it. All right.